I've been thinking a lot lately about how our faith is affected by the context in which we are living. It's often too easy to create a world around us that is made up of what we believe to be true, what we perceive our desires and needs to be, and then isolate ourselves somewhere apart from the real world in which we are living. But in reality, what is going on around us is impacting us in so many ways. It's important to pay attention to the context in which we live. Context is everything. That is why history is so important in our lives. Sometimes we just associate history with memorizing dates and events and then remembering when they happened, and we don't really connect them to a real flesh and blood person or group of people that lived through those times in the past. If we don't pay attention to history, we're going to make the same mistakes over and over again. That is why we continually share the story of God's love for God's people. We hear the words over and over, and they draw us into that story. This is how we come to know the deep love of our God, who has named us and claimed us. Scripture reveals our God always in context. I read a book written by an Old Testament scholar, Walter Brueggemann, several months ago, when COVID numbers and deaths were soaring. It's entitled Virus as a Summons to Faith, Biblical Reflections in a Time of Loss, Grief, and Uncertainty. He shares a story in that book which has stuck with me all these months, about a hymn we have sung nearly every Thanksgiving in our ministry. It is the hymn, Now Thank We All Our God, written by Pastor Martin Rinkart during the 30 Years' War from 1618 to 1648 as a table grace for his family. As we reflect in this time and season on being thankful, in this time when we are living, it's important to know the context for those words. At that moment in time, he was the only clergy left in his town where many came to find refuge from the war and from pestilence. He often buried as many as 40 or 50 persons in one day, one of whom had been his wife. So as we join our voices in these words, they link us all together from the 1600s down to our lives today. Now thank we all our God with hearts and hands and voices, who wondrous things hath done, in whom this world rejoices, who from our mother's arms hath blessed us on our way with countless gifts of love, and still is ours today. O may this bounteous God through all our life be near us, with ever joyful hearts and blessed peace to cheer us, and keep us in God's grace, and guide us when perplexed, and free us from all ill in this world and the next. The context of his work, not unlike our own, was a scene of relentless death. Yet he wrote and sang of thanks. The hymn celebrates the wondrous things done by this bounteous God. The hymn invites us to cling to God's grace that frees us of all ills in all imaginable futures. The words are sure, bold, and awe-filled. They are a call to live each day in relentless, uncompromising hope. This is more than assurance that we'll get through this. It is the certainty that God will not quit until God has arrived at God's good intention for us. God's holy purpose is tenacious, steadfast, and relentless, so that we and all of God's creation will come to well-being. Our task is to hope and echo our thankfulness in a way that is anchored in the good, faithful resolve of God, which persists even in the midst of a pandemic.